Good afternoon, everybody. I decided that for my vlog today on this beautiful afternoon, June 8th, Tuesday afternoon, I decided to do something more specific for the book. I have completed the rewrite now through chapter 12, so I've got 8 chapters left to go, and I've got people looking at them, and I'm getting closer and closer and closer to getting ready for beta readers. But I decided to give you all a taste of how the book is coming along. So I chose a chapter 8, and the little more than half of the second half of the chapter. And I decided, with my son's dog Cooper lying here next to me, I decided I would read this part of chapter 8 so you guys can get a taste of how the book is coming along. Unfortunately, it means I have to hold my phone way down here, which is kind of a problem, and there's noise in the background. Hopefully that noise stops soon. Somebody's getting their car washed and detailed. Oh, look at that. It just got quiet. Let's hope it stays that way. Anyway, so we're going to try this and see how it goes. Here we are. Here we go. Now, this begins with Michael. Michael is a 12-year-old boy, and the whole town has gone nuts over a ketchup stain that's in the shape of the face of Jesus. Here we go. Michael was in the park at a distance and watched Officer Helen Schaefer go over to her cop car. He watched Marty as Marty watched all the people. Michael had many unanswered questions about what was happening. He decided it was time to investigate again. He dropped his bike off next to some trees and walked into the crowd. He made his way as close to the shrine as he could get without being seen by Marty or Officer Schaefer. He made his way to the inside of the fence from the scoreboard on the outfield, expecting something to make sense to him. Nothing did. He walked over to where the television reporters were waiting around for their next live news feeds. They were all discussing Twins sports scores and the weather. He learned nothing from them. He looked again at the mountain of stuff and the people walking through the softball field to deliver them with care. There were flowers and candles and crosses and rosaries and stuffed animals and photos and statues and so much stuff that things were falling over each other and tumbling down the pile. Paths had formed on both sides of the fence from people walking around the mountain of stuff to get behind it to see the scoreboard. On the other side, where people waited to take turns to see the face of Jesus, there were only a few feet between the scoreboard and the fence. He followed that path around and through the people. The crowd formed a demarcation line of people about 6 feet away from the scoreboard to let him, and only him, in. There seemed to be a magical invisible barrier no one could cross, or God would be angry. The Holy Land opened itself up for Michael to visit. As Michael hesitated, he thought, "I'm not scared of any God." It took only an ounce of courage for him to cross the invisible line. He waited for someone to stop him. Am I invisible? No one could see him. He stepped closer and closer to the scoreboard. Will I be hit by lightning? Is that what God does? Is God going to be angry with me for being there? Michael took another step closer, then another. Finally, Michael got all the way to the front of the scoreboard so he could easily reach out and touch it. He looked at the scoreboard. The score was still up. What are people all weirded out about? He looked around the scoreboard, on the ground, around the back of it, in the tall grass surrounding it. He saw nothing to show the power of God. He even saw the red blotch, which was darker in color as it dried out. Why are people flipping out about this? He bent down to examine it. It's just ketchup, he said out loud. Uh-oh, I'm losing it. There we go. No one heard him. He continued. Whoever was keeping score was probably eating a hot dog at the same time. No crime committed. So why is everyone acting so weird? Adults are stupid. He shrugged his shoulders, made his way out of the crowd, picked up his bike, and went looking for his friends. Maggie was still at the shrine, deep in prayer. She mumbled incoherent words. She felt the spirit overtake her and reveled in the intensity of the experience. Her body visibly vibrated like she was having an orgasm. It was getting close to dinner time, and Pete was hungry. He attempted to rein in his wife. "Maggie! Maggie! Maggie!" She continued to ignore him. He decided to give up and go eat at the cafe. He got a couple of blocks away from the park when he looked down Main Street and realized the cafe was going to be packed with people. He turned around and marched back to the softball field. "That woman is going to feed me dinner." This time when he found her, she was on her knees, loudly trying to speak in tongues. Her eyes were practically rolling in the back of her head. The words coming out of her mouth were gibberish. Her eyes were locked shut. He bent down and yelled in her ear, "Maggie!" She immediately opened her eyes and glared at him. "What?" "It's dinner time." "So? So you need to come home and make dinner." "No, I don't," she stated matter of fact. "Yes, you do. I'm hungry." "I don't care. I'm not hungry." "You always make dinner." "Not tonight." "What am I supposed to eat?" "Go to the cafe, or go to the grocery store, or go home and look in the refrigerator. There must be food in there. Have you ever opened a can of soup before? We do own a can opener, you know." Condemnation hung in the air like the flies that were beginning to circle the crowd sweating in the summer heat. Pete furiously demanded, "Maggie, so help me, you come home now and stop this nonsense." "Nonsense? This isn't nonsense. This is more real to me than anything else has ever been. This is a miracle." Pete had had enough. He grabbed her by the arm and walked her home. She only fought him for a moment and then pulled her arm away and walked quietly, seething with anger. She decided maybe they should go home and have it out once and for all. They entered the house through the kitchen door and stood there staring at each other. Charlie greeted them with all the happiness a puppy contains. When he realized they were not responding to his joy, he went into the living room to lie on his own pillow in the corner to pout. All the words they wanted to spew at each other remained silent. Maggie turned around and started making dinner. She got out the can opener, showed it to him, and opened a can of chicken noodle soup. As the soup splattered into the saucepan, Pete went into the living room and turned on the TV. If anyone had asked him what he watched that evening, he could not have given an accurate response. He was too upset to pay any attention. A few minutes later, they sat at the dining room table with their food in front of them. Neither could eat. They stared at the steaming bowls of noodles and chicken and carrots and celery and little bits of parsley, a mixture that seemed as discombobulated as their marriage. Finally, as the untouched soup turned as cold as Maggie's heart, she looked at him and spoke. "Pete, I know you have been sleeping around for years." He remained silent, staring into the chicken void. "I think I've known the whole time. I just didn't want to admit it was true." "How did you find out?" "I don't know. I put it all together today. At the scoreboard, it just came to me." Silence. "I think we should get a divorce," Maggie whispered. His eyes lifted. He met her gaze for a moment. He looked past her at the framed picture behind her. "You know what? I hate that painting, the one behind you." Maggie turned slowly and looked at it. She slowly turned back to face him, her brows tipped up. Why? It was a scenic picture, a print of a not-famous painting by a not-famous artist. Something purchased years ago to decorate a wall because it matched the dining room decor. Why does this painting mean something to me now? He asked himself. He answered her. I liked it when we bought it. A farm in a meadow surrounded by fields of hay and autumn-colored trees near sunset when everything is a golden haze. This entire house is decorated in the color gold. You know why I liked it? Because it screamed of financial success. But that changed. Now it screams of boredom, of settling, of feeling like nothingness. I hate it. It makes me angry. I want to be angry, Maggie. I want you to be angry. I want you to scream at me in anger. We were high school sweethearts, she replied quietly. No scream came from her. We've traveled the world together with our son when he was young. We've been all over Europe and all over North America. This is an exciting life. I'm not bored, Pete. I'm not angry about my life. The anger switched on. She screamed, I'm angry you don't think our life together is precious enough to treasure. I'm angry you need more excitement than I can give you. I'm angry at how you can trash our lives we built like they are nothing. Pete wanted to rage more, but deep down he was a little afraid of her. I always feel under your thumb. You'll control me. Everything I say or do has to meet with your approval. He didn't say any of those thoughts. After all, what was left to say? There was more to say. She felt much the same way. He is so controlling. I can't do anything. Anything I want to do, I have to go through him. When do I get to live the life I want? She tried to reach out. Pete, we were happy at times, weren't we? I loved you very much in the beginning. You got so wrapped up in the dealership, I don't know. You didn't seem to have any time for me. I was busy with our son. I did give you the salon, and I love the salon. The salon made her think of Laurie Greenfield. Now she felt angry. Was Laurie Greenfield one of your women, she asked. He opened his mouth to say something. No sound came. He closed his mouth again and continued to stare. How did I not know, she continued. Should I pack a bag, asked Pete. His voice was small and childlike, nothing like the big bully who dragged his wife home from the park earlier. No point. You can stay in the other bedroom until we get things sorted out. She got up from the table to start clearing away the dishes. Pete sat there a while longer, his head in his hands, listening to the clang of the dishes. It never occurred to him she might want a divorce. It never occurred to him she would ever figure it out. He always thought of her as too naive. He felt dumb. Maybe he could stop this. He got up and walked into the kitchen. He intended to walk up behind her while she was at the sink, wrap his arms around her, kiss her on the back of the neck, and make her see that none of this mattered, that they could go on as usual. He approached her from behind cautiously with all the stealth of a rhinoceros stalking a blade of grass. She read his mind. She spun around and glared at him with the daggers of a legion of first-century Roman soldiers. He didn't stand a chance. He took 2 steps back. Is there anything I can do to make this better? She glared at him in silence. The daggers were annihilating him. Pete suddenly looked like a very old man. His shoulders slumped. His already frowned face drooped. His heart grew cold to match her own. He started to turn and walk out of the kitchen when a gust of hot wind blew through him. He physically turned red with anger. This is all your fault, you know. Unable to take responsibility for his own actions, he went on the attack. If you weren't such a cold fish in bed, I never would have gone looking for another woman. Besides, I never loved you. I felt sorry for you. I knew if I didn't marry you, nobody would. And I needed your dad's money to start up the dealership. So thanks for that anyways. He stormed out of the kitchen, grabbed his things from the bedroom, and hastily moved into the spare room. His nuclear bomb hit its mark. She turned back towards the sink filled with dishes, stared into it blindly, and wept for hours. There you go. A taste of the power of ketchup. Talk to you soon.